Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Marketing Podcast. With me today is my trustworthy friend, Big Jim Mack. How you doing today, Jim?
Fantastic, Tyson. Doing well. Cold, snowy here in Montreal, but life is good. I've got no complaints.
Yep, hot in cans. It's just funny. We're on opposite sides of the world. What I find really hilarious, or not hilarious, but just bizarre to really get your head around. Like when I was in Nashville and Chicago in October, it was cold. It was like, for me, it was cold. Not freezing. Like one day it actually hit 20 degrees, which was nice. But you wake up in the morning, it was like 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, which is cold. And that's October. and then I've got friends where I've seen it in November. They already had -1 and just off of snowing. And I'm going, it's November. Like, no wonder you guys appreciate summer when it happens, because I tell you, you only get this little window of happiness. Whereas here in Australia, it's happy all year round.
Yeah, you got to just gear up, right? You have to have the coat, the boots, the gloves, the hat, and then you feel like you can actually do stuff outside. But having a short summer definitely makes you appreciate it more. But I'm sure.
I'd have to.
Yeah, for sure.
We do the same thing. If we do get a couple of cool nights in winter, you say, oh, this is really nice. We should actually put a fire on outside. And so we bought a fire pit a couple of years ago. I think we only used it 4 times.
I'm sure you enjoyed it those 4 times a lot.
Okay, let's get on. Oh, it's fantastic. So let's get on to today's topic. What are we actually talking about?
Today, we're going to do a deep dive into content repurposing. So there's clinics out there that are creating their own content. Maybe it's blog content or different types of content out there. And one concept I think is really, really important is that people understand how to repurpose that content. You shouldn't just make a video or write a blog or do a webinar and not really mine that content for a maximum amount of opportunities to get it out there in front of your ideal patient. Repurposing, basically the definition of this is taking existing content and altering it or reformatting it and to serve kind of a different purpose or to reach a different audience. It's really about extending the life and value of this original content by adapting it and reusing it in kind of various forms. So like I mentioned, a common thing would be, for example, we do this podcast, right, Tyson? So we spend half an hour talking to each other about a different podiatry marketing topic. And if it only lived as that podcast, I mean, it would still be a good podcast, but would anyone really know about it? Would we have that visibility or that awareness of people if we don't put it on a Facebook group or put it on Instagram or put it on LinkedIn or put it on YouTube for videos? So when you take the time to create original high quality content, you want to make sure it gets seen. And one of the ways of doing that is by repurposing that content.
That makes sense. So if somebody, say for example, they did a video and, they put the video on YouTube, and then you're saying from YouTube, they then put it into LinkedIn, and then they put that same video on their website with a bit more information about it, and then they could also post it onto their Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely. You just have to try to figure out those kind of formats where it's at, and each of the little platforms has their own. Some's going to show video more, some's going to have more text in a post. On TikTok, for example, it's just all short form video, the kind of catchy, well-edited stuff. So you kind of have to know what is the right place. So if you do, let's say, a video about orthotics, it could be something where you just do that video, maybe a short write-up. Maybe sometimes you either have a staff member or another physician in your group, or maybe even utilizing a little bit of ChatGPT or AI in order to make sure it's correct. But you can really quickly produce not only the video, but also that different formats that can go on those different outposts or different social media channels.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, because sometimes you'll put a lot of effort into sometimes putting these things together. You might think about I look at some podiatrists and look at some of the blogs that they've written, and I'll read some of the blogs, and they're written very well. And that's the only place I ever see it. They write it, they put it on the website. And I know some people don't like being in front of a video camera. And I know other people could take that blog, and they might even have a teleprompter, and they can stand there looking right at the camera and be able to talk through it and look like an absolute professional, but they don't always do it. Sometimes they'll do a video here, they'll write a fantastic blog, but they don't convert that blog into a video. They've already put the time and effort into actually creating the blog. So it's just taking it that one step further.
Yeah, a lot of people say that 20% of the time you do content creation should be about creating it, and then the other 80% should be about distributing it and putting it out there for people to see. Because if you're spending 99% of the time developing this amazing blog or this amazing video, but no one's seeing it, you're just digging yourself a hole. It's not that you're necessarily wasting time. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does it make a sound, right? So it's a similar thing with any type of.
No, it doesn't. It
But
doesn't make a
but it's one
sound
of those
from
things, right?
from what someone told me.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's got to be true then, right? If someone told you that, but it's one of those things where you really have to, and it's not only necessarily for the marketing of your practice. We talk a lot about digital marketing, digital channels, but also can be if you want to get more speaking gigs, either at conferences or community events. If you have video, photo, someone from your staff can take pictures of you doing those different types of things. It can also be a way to get more of those types of events or that type of work if you want to get more into the speaking gig or really help showcase your kind of public speaking, for example.
Yeah. So what sort of content are you saying they should start with repurposing? What's the easiest stuff for people to start doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of what's easiest and what most people are what are people most comfortable with, right? So some people are just very.
I think the comfort part's a big thing.
So, and like you mentioned, some people are just not comfortable in front of a
Yeah,
camera.
and I said that, like, if you go back to the first time I ever did a video of myself and I watched it, I went, "You look like an idiot. You sound funny. It was terrible." Now I'm probably doing exactly the same thing. The only thing that's improved is the sound and the lighting, which definitely helps. But I still sound exactly the same. I go back to the original videos, I still sound the same. So we're really critical about how we look, how we sound. Do I have a shiny head? All that type of thing.
Not if you wear the makeup that I gave you. I keep coming back to that, but
I know. I'm going to pull it out one day. I'll put it on while we're actually on here and dab it on my head.
But getting back to what you asked,
is it the same one that you currently use?
No comment. But getting back to what we're talking about here, so like I think the kind of the fork in the road is visual, written, or audio content, right? I think we've talked about a little bit these different types of content. I think a visual, and they kind of combine into each other, right? So if you have a great blog topic, like you mentioned, you can look at the camera, you can basically read your blog in a way that's helpful. It doesn't just have to be like a video of you staring at a camera for 5 minutes. You can splice in some video. You can splice in if it's an orthotic talk, you can show the orthotics. There can be images. There can be more than just if you're doing that. So video, written, or audio is the best place to start. And then you can, those kind of large pieces of content can basically be broken into what we call like micro content, right? So if you gave a talk at a local community thing and you're up in front talking about diabetes, for example, you could splice out a 30-second clip and put it on in your Instagram, or 2 minutes onto your LinkedIn, or maybe they just took a photo of you in front of the group and you can talk about why it's important to get out there and public speak, just to get the reps in so you get better at it. I would say you want to have something that's more long form. It's the long form video, the long form written, 500 to 1,000 words written. Or if you're doing something like this where you're doing just an audio only podcast, there's ways of making audiograms that are pretty simple, some different tools that are available. I think maybe later on next month, we'll get into maybe some tool talk where we break down some of the tools that we use, the tools we think could be helpful for podiatry clinics. But it really starts with that larger audio, video, and written stuff. And then you can break it down into those, let's say, like micro content, social channels to really help gain the awareness for that long form stuff you've created.
It is because, and sometimes too, people, I don't know, they consume things differently. Some people like to sit there and read a really long article because they're into wanting to read a long article. I get bored after about the second paragraph. I'm not someone that really likes reading long articles. I'd much rather, if that article was converted to an audiogram that was purely just a picture of whatever it was, and they read the article and I just had to listen to it for 3 minutes, I'd much rather that. I'd rather just take it in and listen to it. Or if they took part of that article and the main points and did a quick 45, 60-second video, just give me the points from it, I would much prefer that. But to sit there and read something, even if it's only 5 minutes, I don't know, it's not me. I can read a book because I know I'm reading a book. But a blog, I'd much rather watch a video or actually listen to something.
No, for sure. And I think it's one of those things too, where some people will get a little bit concerned about, so what am I going to talk about? This all sounds interesting to me, but what am I actually going to talk about? And it really should be about what kind of care do you want to provide patients? That's a huge opportunity to position yourself as an expert. Let's say you love treating runners. So what are those 5 or 10 different topics about running injuries you just completely love and can really spend 20, 30 minutes talking about on video? And then, like you said, chop it up into different ways. There's tools now that can take video, transcribe it. So you basically almost have the bones for a solid blog after you lined it. You can have a video of it. You can have all kinds of stuff. So I think it really it's your opportunity to showcase the type of patients you want to take care of. And like you said, by either putting it on your website or propagating it on social media. Maybe it's 10 or 20. Sometimes we get a little in this kind of organic age of social media marketing where the numbers aren't as big as they used to be. But if you're still getting 50 to 100 views of a video, chances are there's going to be people that fall into that niche of type of patient you want to treat. If you only, 2 or 3 of those people come from 20 or 30 minutes of work, that's definitely worth it. So I would say that when it comes to topics, make sure you're focusing on the type of care, whether it be procedures or the type of patient you want to take care of. Focus on those topics first.
Yeah. And I think it's really important too to remember you're creating the content for your patients and your future patients. You're not creating the content for other podiatrists. If it's for your clinic.
Right.
So for me, for example, if I do a video, I'm doing a video for podiatrists. I'm not doing videos for patients because it's business or it's marketing related. But if you've got your podiatry clinic and you're talking about a running problem, is think about where is that, who is it you're talking to? Is it someone who isn't a patient yet? Is it somebody who's already a patient? Is it somebody who's been a patient in the past and you want them to come back? So think about where they are in that journey of coming to your clinic and try and really put it out of your head that another podiatrist might be watching it because it's not for them. So sometimes you might say something that, sometimes you got to say something that's not technically right, but it makes sense for the patient. I don't know if you've ever been in that position. That you'll explain it and there might be 8 things that make it make sense, but if you explain all 8, it'll just confuse the patient. So you break it down to 4 things. Oh, these are the 4 things you need to do. But a podiatrist will go, oh, but what about those other 4? Yeah, but these are the main 4. So I think it's just important to remember you're doing it for the patient. You're not doing it for a podiatrist. And if anyone commented on what you did, it doesn't matter as long as the patients are enjoying the content you're creating.
No, that's a perfect point there because I think you really have to cater your message to the audience you're going after. And I think a good exercise for people is if you're on Instagram or if you're on LinkedIn and you read a message from another podiatrist there, who are they trying to talk to? And I'm on LinkedIn. I see some podiatrists talking to other podiatrists about AI, some podiatrists talking to other physicians about direct care and different things like that. I don't think, for example, like LinkedIn is probably not the place where you're going to be talking to patients. Being able to adapt your message or only use the channels for the type of audience you're going after. So if you are going after podiatrists, other healthcare providers, or maybe some manufacturers, LinkedIn is probably a good channel for that. But if you're really trying to talk to your patients, places like LinkedIn is not the place. So something like Instagram, maybe something like where they can discover you. I would say also maybe I joke around about TikTok, but there are a lot of young people on that channel. Maybe for a little bit of older folk like myself and Tyson, some people are still on Facebook. So you want to make sure that you're adapting your content, these different channels, whether it be who you're talking to or what format that content is in. But it's really important that the message you're sending is in the right place. Because for example, if you're trying to find patients on Twitter, if anyone in the audience here, feel free to email Tyson and myself about it. But I don't think there's many kind of patient-physician relationships that are bolstered by kind of a healthy tweet stream. So make sure you're going after those channels where you know that your message will be heard by a certain number of people.
That's why I refer to it as Twitter. Because it's just, I don't think there's any patient out there who's just, or even just waiting to hear what you want to say on Twitter. It's just not, I don't think it's that sort of platform. Unless you happen to, be in that celebrity podiatry realm. And they're few and far between. I know a couple.
Yeah,
that you just put in there. There's a few who think they're there, but
yeah, there's a few out there that have their own TV shows, but besides, the rest of us are on YouTube and podcasts.
Yeah, but I think it's right there. Like even TikTok, if you've got a lot younger demographic, that might work. I was listening to a podcast a couple of years ago, and it was a builder, and he's got 500,000 followers on TikTok because he just doing building stuff. He said, who would have thought I'm a 40-year-old builder and I've got 500,000 followers on TikTok, and then he's getting sponsors from building companies. And he said he went on there just for a joke to show that he could put a nail in a thing and just hammer it in with one hit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he started doing a few videos on where could he hammer these nails into? And then he started explaining how you looked after your hammer and then looking after other tools. And all of a sudden this massive following. Just incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy that happens.
So podiatrists could do the same thing.
Yeah, some are doing that if you're on YouTube and TikTok. They're doing all kinds of ingrown toenails and gross stuff coming out of people's feet on TikTok. But I don't know if that attracts patients, but it's all what you're trying to go for. Last but not least, I would roughly say that make sure you maintain consistency and quality of the content that you're repurposing, making sure that kind of initial piece of kind of pillar content is of high quality. It reflects well on you and your clinic. You don't just want to go for the views. There's not really any benefit of doing that. You want to build your reputation, display your expertise. So it's really, really important that your clinic's voice and values shine through all this. I think it is also important that while we're talking about repurposing the content in a lot of channels, you really want to make sure that first piece of content is really good. And maybe at first you're only sending it to Instagram or to LinkedIn, depending on who you're trying to talk to. Don't try to do all the things at once, but by maintaining consistency and quality and repurposing your content and creating good content in the first place, it can have a really positive impact on your practice.
Yeah, the only point I was going to say just about when you're repurposing content too, especially if it's video, is think about where you are in the shot for when you go to repurpose it. So if you're doing a 16:9 video and you're standing towards one side, just remember, if you're then going to put that on, say, YouTube Shorts, you're not going to be in it. You won't automatically be in the screen, just your nose will be. So just be aware of that. And sometimes, like you said, sometimes you don't know what's going to resonate with people and what's not going to resonate. So I've had 2 short videos recently on YouTube that I posted. One was when I was at the Bears game in the NFL, and all I did, I just recorded the kickoff, and the guy dropped the ball, and I said something when he dropped the ball, and I just put that up there, not even thinking about it. And next thing, it was like 1,500 views, and I went, made no sense. And then we're at a restaurant, and I recorded something that was on our table. We were at this thing called Petite Chef, and this little like 3-inch chef runs around. It's like a projector.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I saw the video.
It's really good. Yeah, I shot this like 27-second video, put it up there, and next thing it was like 4,000 views. And I've gone. So sometimes you don't know what is going to just grab someone's attention.
Absolutely.
And then other times I've done a short where I think this is really good, and no one cares. Yet you get 7 views, and you go, seriously, that was a good one. Yeah. So sometimes it's just, I don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Which is why I think you got to keep, like you said, the consistency. You just got to keep doing it. And even if you're not that great at the start, you just keep improving. Remember, was it the last couple of weeks I mentioned about send out your crazies first?
Yeah.
Was it just a conversation you and I had?
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the crazies first.
Yeah, send out your crazies first. So this is what your videos are all about. Send out your crazies first. See what happens. Once you get comfortable, then the quality just improves.
Yeah, you got to experiment a little bit, right? But it is that consistency that's really what counts. We can have all kinds of ideas. We can have a plan, but until we put that plan into action, it's not going to go anywhere. So take that first step, repurpose some content, make some good, high quality, original content as well, and see where it takes your practice.
Yeah, and even as an example for you and I think when we first did this podcast, there was a video on. Did we use Zoom the first time?
No, we used Riverside the entire time, but yeah.
And okay, then it was Riverside, and now we're testing something else out at the moment.
Yeah,
Squadcast.
Got to keep experimenting.
So yeah, you just got to keep testing things out, and I've done that so many times myself. You just keep testing different things until you find what suits you and what you're going to be comfortable using.
Absolutely. I think if anyone has found value from today's chat, definitely subscribe on iTunes. If you have questions about how to repurpose content, what are some good tools to use, definitely contact Tyson or myself. We're happy to give you some links, give you some ideas. I think it's definitely a topic we'll touch on in the not too distant future. But until then, thanks so much for the chat today, Tyson.
Yep, it's been fantastic, Jim, and I will see you next week. Whoa, we're getting close to Christmas.
Sounds good, Tyson.
Very exciting.